Ellis, if you're, thank you for the anticipation. As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tom Dixon,
Here.
Rima Sherry,
Here.
Chantal Murphy.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tucker Holland,
Here.
Ellis,
It's making not working here.
I got you. I got you now. Okay, great. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. I don't know that I have any anticipated speakers, but we have members of the public. Welcome and thank you. Good afternoon. This is an open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. The meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening by a video conference via the Zoom app is posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note the meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by a video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Unless we note otherwise, we'll turn to the first item on the agenda. But before we do so, permit me to cover ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, we'll go down the list of members, inviting each to provide comment, questions, or motions. Hold until your name is called. Please mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the floor is yielded to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members of the board have spoken, the chair will forward public comment to the members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names, be acknowledged, and speak to the chair. Finally, all votes in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. I have one change to the agenda that I'm aware of. So I'd like to carry the approval of minutes over to the next meeting and not address them today. Is there anything else from staff or anyone else that we want to adjust the agenda before we approve it?
Mr. Chair, move approval with as amended by your comments.
Great, thank you, Tom. A second?
Second.
Second from Rima by roll call. Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
and Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Excellent. We will jump to item 4, public comment. Is there any public comment today?
There is some public comment. I am very pleased to have with us here and be able to announce that Christy Ferrantella will be the next housing director for the Affordable Housing Trust. I couldn't be happier for this body and for the community. I think we all know Christy well from her service on the select board and in a variety of other capacities, including being the select board member to this body previously. So I just want to say welcome, Christy. And if you want to say a few words, be my guest. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you so
Tucker.
much.
Christy, thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to pick up all these projects that Tucker and the Trust have gotten going over the last couple of years. And I know there's no shortage of things going on. And I'm really excited to get started and to work with all of you.
Awesome. Well, I think I can probably speak for the Trust, and we're very excited that you've decided to come back and join us again in a new and different capacity.
Thank you.
So Christy's first day will be December 18th, but we have already started meeting weekly and have been for a few weeks to just bring her up to speed on various things that are happening. And obviously, everyone knows there's a lot going on. So we're going to continue that coordination, and we will have a period of overlap for about a month after she starts. So we, again, welcome Christy, and very excited for the future.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other public comment today? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and move to closing cost assistance, application for 35 Warren's Landing. Ellis, do you have any comments on the completeness of the application or anything? I'm getting a hold on.
Sorry, my headphones was not working. Can you hear
No
me?
worries. We can.
Okay. The rest of the information, she's supposed to send it to me the next couple of days. I'm in touch with her closing attorney, so I'm only missing 2 pieces of information.
Which are?
And I can barely hear anybody.
I think the purchase and sale isn't in yet.
Okay. Are there any questions for Ellis on the application? Any motions that anybody would like to propose? Rima?
Yeah, I'll propose that we approve the application for Jennifer Truesdale at 35 Warren's Landing, pending receipt of the last bits of paperwork needed, up to $15,000.
Great. Thank you, Rima. Meg?
Well, second.
Okay. The motion from Rima and a second from Meg. Any conversation, or did you want
Yeah.
to move to a vote? Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if she had her home buyer certification complete.
Yeah.
Was that in the packet? I must have missed it. Okay,
It
cool.
was.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table that's been seconded by Meg. No further discussion. Vote by roll call. Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Okay, public comments. So we'll close that one. Item 6, year-round deed restriction program. Tucker, if I remember, we were looking at 12:45 for Judy to potentially join us today. Is that correct?
That's my recollection, Brian, as well.
Okay, so I moved a little faster to get here, not knowing we were going to move over the minute. So with the board's approval, I'd like to carry this item open to later in the meeting and move to other business while we wait for Judy to hopefully join us.
Mr. Chair, so under other business, just to remind the board members, we have our next meeting scheduled for a week from today. And that is going to be the last meeting that we have before the end of the year. We are looking at Thursday, January 11th as the date for the workshop on strategic plan for the following year that we discussed previously. And I think at this stage, Ellis has emailed you all. You all have indicated your availability that day. And it sounds like the 11 to 3 timeframe is going to work out well. We're in the process of securing a physical site to do this at, probably either the trailer by the old fire station or the community room, and we will organize lunch during that session. It's not quite a holiday party, Penny, but it's close. It's close.
Just bring cookies.
Just bring cookies, right?
That is not
close. Seating in the trailer does not come close.
We're doing our best, it's baby steps, we're doing our best. But I appreciate everyone indicating their availability for that. And I think it will be, good overlap with Christy will have been here for a few weeks at that point. And so it will be a very productive session.
Excellent. Are there any other, I guess, board comments? New topics, items? Okay, do we want to try and cover the year-round deed restriction program, Tucker, so we don't hold a meeting in space to?
We can. So following the last, Judy has just arrived, I understand, Mr. Chair.
Great. Then we'll wait.
Brian, I have to sign off, Brian. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Dave.
But
I hope
will
everything's
catch up.
okay.
Everything's good, buddy.
We'll talk to you soon.
Merry Christmas all if I don't see you or talk to you before then.
And to you. Hi, Judy.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I was in Taunton this morning and it just took me longer to get here than I expected.
You're 2 minutes earlier than you stated, so there's nothing to be sorry about.
Oh, you mean I
I
already
was-
told you I might be late? I didn't know that.
Yeah, you told us you were going to be 12:45, so you're early. So shining stars for you today. So we just happened to be at item 6, year-round deed restriction program discussion. We haven't opened up in any way, so would love to start off with you. And now, wait, you disappeared.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
here.
wait, there you are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave left and my board shuffled.
It's sometimes a challenge on Zoom when there's too many faces and you can't sort of see them all. So we had a discussion on Friday. Brian, Tucker, myself, and Vicky about sort of moving forward. And I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I think we're kind of looking at this in sort of 2 tracks, if you will. One is to have legislation prepared that you guys will be able to review soon. I'm not quite sure what the timeline is on that piece. I'm just going to stay in my lane. But I said I would start to work on kind of what the program design would look like. So let's say we have this legislation in place. How are we going to present this program? What is it going to say that it's trying to do? So you'll have that to respond to. And I had hoped to have a little bit of that done today. I frankly am kind of behind at this point. So I don't have as much to tell you as I perhaps had hoped when we talked on Friday, but that is what I'm working on now. Is sort of like, we have the authority to do this. Now what are we calling it? Who are we trying to reach out to? What are we offering? And what are we saying the limitations are? And I think it's very much for now going to be kind of, this is a pilot program. We're going to start simple. We can complicate this more later if we choose. But rather than taking on more than perhaps we have the capacity to do, I'm saying we collectively here, taking on more than perhaps we have the capacity to do, let's start with a program design that we know we can do and to try to build on some success. So what we had talked about, and Brian and Tucker or Vicky, correct me if you have a better recollection than I, but my notes indicate what we had talked about was having an income limit of 240% AMI. And actually, I have a question for you guys, because people calculate median income over the HUD AMIs a little bit differently. Not everybody uses the same methodology. Are you calculating 240% based on the CPA income limits? How are you calculating 240% of AMI? What's it based on? Is it HUD AMI or is it CPA 100%? Or have
I
I
don't
just
have that
asked a
answer.
question that no one knows the answer to?
Well,
Tucker.
we haven't done anything at 240 yet. So
Okay.
that is something that we need to
Okay.
determine when we do something.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a suggestion. Oh, Vicky, go ahead. I bet you even have a better one than I do. So go.
Well, I was going to say that, because the program, EOHLC. I wish we could go back to DHC.
HLC, just call it HLC.
Because they calculate it based on, they calculate their AMIs based on HUD. So I think for purposes of consistency, and I don't know if it would be how different the effect will be, but I think we should probably use the HUD as a means of calculating it, because we'll be using that for other affordable projects, not just this. And so what do you think, Judy, or anyone else?
The easier way to do it is to take CPA 100% and simply multiply it by 2.4. And the general feeling in the housing world is that the CPA income limits are probably a little closer to reality, but you are correct that HLC is using the HUD income limits. If you're going to do that, just recognize that those stop at 80%. So we have to agree as to what the methodology is for extending that to 240%. Okay. And don't laugh at me, guys, but people do not do this the same way. So if you want me to propose a methodology, I'm happy to do that. And I don't mind working with the HUD, the HUD limits, Vicky. It's not that. It's just the CPA ones are just easier to work with. That's all.
So I guess what would happen if we're using one standard for this program, and then we're also using 240 to meet our, well, we'd be using 80% to meet the anything that's a program or a project under HLC.
I need to look at it a little more closely to see how. I don't believe that the income limits are all that different at 80% from CPA, 80% CPA, 80% CPA and 80% HUD. I don't think are all that different. Where it starts to fall apart is when you get lower than 80%, and figuring out what to do with that. So I think what I should do is maybe just play with this a little bit and show you the two ways of doing it.
Okay.
And you guys can then decide what you're comfortable with. Because Vicky, you do raise a valid point that in some ways, probably using the HUD income limits may be the more understandable approach to the general public out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just that I'll work on this.
Well, and the other thing is, so like, even like our very often, warrant articles or, other things that we have crafted are all related to HUD. And so I'm just concerned that if we start having 240 for this program, calculate on CPA, 240 for other things, I think it gets a little confusing.
That's fine. I'll just use the HUD limits. It's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I mean, I believe for HUD, the area median income for Nantucket is 136,300. I mean, that's sort of the known figure around here.
That's the median. But are we not going to say 240? So this is another question. Is this 240% period, or is it 240% adjusted for household size? That's a very important question.
Right. Well, so if we look at Housing Nantucket, and Caleb's here, but I believe that Housing Nantucket simply looks at the area median and takes a straight, 150 or 1.5 of the area median income and it's one number not adjusted for household size.
So we have a different number based on the household size. So 150% AMI, 240% AMI are different numbers based on household size.
So Caleb, you know what might make sense? Maybe we should just talk offline with you and Ann or something and make sure I understand and everybody else understands the methodology you're using to get to 1.5 or 150%. And we'll extrapolate from that to 240. And that way it's all being consistent.
Yep.
Happy to help.
All right. So Vicky, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something else? Sorry, I'm yammering on here.
Oh, no, I think I can put it down now. Thank you.
Okay. So we had talked about having that income limit in place, at least in the pilot program, and having, I think, a limit as to what the maximum price would be or percentage of a price would be? Brian, I'm not remembering. Did we get that far, or Tucker?
We talked about the maximum price as it related to
The 240.
the 240 and kind of maximum value. So I think there's definitely a ceiling, but then there's some question about people who are in residences that would be willing to take on the restriction that are in a greater value property than their income correlates to.
Right. But do we need an upper limit on that?
You know, I would think that that's probably a full board discussion. My personal recommendation is, yeah, in a pilot program, we should have an upper limit so we can see how the breadth of potential applicants and then understand, do we run into roadblocks and need to make amendments?
Because I think what you had said the other day when we met was 240%, 240% sort of gets you to a maximum price of 1.9.
It was even less than that when we did the math out. Yeah,
It's right under
I think it
one-
was like $1.8 million, which doesn't service any of the open market today at the moment.
So the question is, how do we solve this then? Because we don't want to create a program that's not going to work for anybody.
Right. Meg?
Can I just get a little clarification from you, Judy, on what the limit represents? I guess I'm not clear on the concern. Because the 240 AMI would be 326, 640 for a family of 4, right?
It depends on how you,
If we went with the family of 4, you know, if we went with tiered, right? So you could have
that, for the sake of this discussion, I'll accept that. I have not done that adjusted for household size analysis yet.
okay. So
So Meg, right now at current interest rates, that amount to qualify for a loan would put you in a category of a home
Oh.
purchase at about $1.9 million.
Right.
And so my point in the discussion that we had was there is not much of a free marketplace to be buying restrictions in of inventory sub $2 million. So the limit that we put may need to exceed $2 million for us to be able to find willing participants to be in the program.
Yeah, I think what we talked about though the other day was not necessarily having like a limit on the house price, but a limit on the contribution that the program could make towards something.
I actually thought we had discussed both, Tucker, but
Well,
that's
well, both topics came up, but
Right.
I think in the end, we said the limit on the contribution would be the kind of the driving element.
I'll come back to Meg and then to Rima.
yes, Tucker, you're right.
so I'm not 100, I guess I would say that because we're doing the income restriction, I don't necessarily see the benefit of putting a restriction on the house value. And to your point about the market value rates for mortgages, that's one area to capture, but also there's so much that we can capture from existing homes who can buy in, that I think we could get, if our goal is 1,000 in 10 years, you know, I think we could easily capture dozens and dozens in a year of existing homes where a double parent, 2-kid household would make less than the 240. And from what I understood from George, if I'm remembering his name correctly, we're negotiating each contract individually, so we can always pass something up if it's not the right fit for our program, right?
I think that's generally accurate. Yes. And the only reason I say generally is, you know, we may want to have a limit on a $10 million property, but we may not. But like, so I think I think you're right that each one can be independently looked at.
I think
Because maybe the person wants to donate 7/8 of the value and only accept cash for 1/8 of the value. So you never know what might exist in the community.
Right. I think part of the challenge is just having a program design that's clear enough that feels like it's all very transparent to the public, given that this is going to be publicly funded, at least as the pilot program.
Agreed. I'm going to come to Rima then Penny.
So if we are having an income limit of 240 AMI, then does that put a value, resale value on the property that's going to be based on the 240 AMI? I mean, is that going to change the value of the property for resale the way a covenant house would, or not? Because this now gets into kind of a wishy-washy area for me.
I'm going to come to Penny.
Yeah, I want to clarify on the covenant program, it is per household. It is not based on the number of occupants. And I just emailed that chart to a number of you, to Tucker and Sully. I think whatever we do, the income needs to be tied to the number of occupants in the household for fairness.
You mean, are you saying adjusted for household size? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
You're saying that the income is adjusted for household size?
I think it should be. I think we ought to look at that at least at a
Again,
minimum.
to Vicky's point, if everything else is being done under the HUD scheme, income adjusted for household size, for clarity, I think you kind of have to do the same thing here. Otherwise, you're going to end up with two different income systems that are just calculated differently, and I think it just contributes more confusion.
So Judy, this is just, I'm going to forward you a chart that Mass Housing prepares for us every year. You're going to see that there's some slight differential between what they produce and what Housing Nantucket has on its website.
Yep.
So just it should be helpful.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see the Mass Housing chart. I have a chart of theirs. I don't know if the one you're sending me is the same one, but I'd like to see what you have.
Yep.
So if I may, I think that when you have, if you have one program that's adjusted for households, another program that's not, 240 for this one calculated, by HUD, another one for CPA. I think it becomes, people don't know what program they would qualify under sometimes. I mean, I think we need to have a sense of consistency across the board.
I agree.
And I think so if all the other the other programs that we are funding have adjustments for households, I think we need to do the same thing here. And I think we need to find a mechanism, whatever it may be, that's going to be consistent and work.
Yep. Great.
Rima, I'm going to come back to your question for just 1 second. So yes, if we're putting a restriction that the program only qualify or people at 240% income levels, it will affect the value of the property. And then the question about resale down the road, the next person qualifying needing to meet the 240 or below will only qualify for a certain amount of debt at that time based on interest rate calculation and median income. So that will be the ceiling of the property.
Okay.
Similar, excuse me, similar to the model of the covenant.
Exactly.
Correct.
That was my question.
Now, I like the really challenging question and statement is if legislation works its way through town meeting and then finally a home rule petition that we create a program that is not capped, what happens to the people that participated in the program prior to versus people that participate in the program after the 240 is not we can go above the 240. So those properties would be price restricted. Back to you, Rima.
Well, you know, if we didn't have income restrictions, I think a cap on what the maximum amount that we could pay for a restriction, you know, just needs to be in place, no matter what the value of the property.
I think people are going to be looking for that kind of information to be able to evaluate the public benefit. I think you got to have that stuff.
And if I interpreted your comments from some of your meetings correctly, it had a lot to relate to fairness and how people were getting value monetarily or restriction, and that would indicate whether somebody was supportive or not supportive of a program.
No, I agree with that. I mean, that is consistent. There were real mixed opinions about whether there should be an income limit. So I just want to make that clear. People had very different ideas. I would say it was maybe just a little over 50% thought that perhaps there should be. But that was a very interesting discussion. Almost every one of those groups was how people felt about an income limit. I will say most people felt there should be. And most people felt very strongly about what year-round should mean, which is the other thing we talked about on Friday, was what does year-round mean? And I think the general consensus, if I could even call it that, from the focus group meetings was year-round means year-round. Like my principal residence is Nantucket. And I may go away for a vacation, but my principal residence is Nantucket. And I think we kind of agreed on Friday that that's what we need to do with this as well.
Thank you, Judy. Vicky?
So, couple of things. When you made a comment about in the event that the home rule petition gets passed at a later date down the road, we always have to keep in mind that you're an affordable housing trust. So we really can't adjust our income levels above what the trust deems to be affordable. So if you want to change the income level for the trust to be more than 240, you need to do that. You just, we're supposed to be thinking about what affordable is. So we've gone above 80%, 100%, 150%, you know, we're at 240 now.
So are you saying that if a home rule petition passed without a price cap, that the Affordable Housing Trust wouldn't be administering a program?
No, what I'm saying is that the program should be probably whatever capped at the income level that you deem to be affordable for the trust. So, I mean, we're obviously Nantucket is much higher than any other community that I can, you know, I've looked at. So that's what I'm saying. Okay. And the other
Penny? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Vicky.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the other thing that we talked about last time was we had said that year round, you had suggested, which we thought was a good suggestion, was principal place of residence, no less than 10 months.
Yeah.
Penny, then Tucker?
Yeah, just quickly, the 240 right now is 327,120. And I think we should be talking, rather than throwing percentages around in real numbers, because I think it better illustrates the reality. And then in terms of residency, we've just gone through this sort of fractious issue with voter registration here. And whether people that don't reside here full-time year-round are allowed to register to vote. Some of the measures are things like, where does one file their taxes? Where is your driver's license? That type of thing. If we needed to beef it up or have sort of a secondary level of substantiation, there are ways to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. To Tucker and then to Meg.
A couple of different comments, sort of to what Penny was saying there. So in order to afford the median home price today in Nantucket, you need to be earning 629,000 a year in today's interest rate environment. So, 240% is still, in Nantucket's world, affordable or attainable housing. You still have a long way to go to get to something that you can afford the median home. The other aspect was just, and I apologize, like if you had said this already, Judy, in a different way, but I think in the discussion the other day, we talked about whatever program separate from the state legislation, but whatever program we might develop around a 240% limit that could be initiated in advance of state action. I think it's important for the trust to do what I'll call a pilot that has two elements to it and a specific
Right.
amount in each of the two buckets. One program somewhat aimed at trying to keep folks who are year-rounders in housing
Right.
here, and another program which is intended to get folks who are year-rounders into opportunities they may have to own a home.
Right.
Yeah. So trying to keep people in their home and get people into homes.
Right.
Yeah.
People who are currently renting, otherwise
People
residing on Nantucket.
otherwise residing, but there will be, I think, folks from both constituencies interested in what we're trying to do.
Oh, I completely agree. Just based on some of the focus group discussions.
Yep.
Meg.
I want to voice my support for the 240 limit. I think that that's very reasonable. And if I guess as a group we agreed on 10 months, that works for me, with the condition that we also limit any short-term rental of the property. So I think someone taking January, February to go live in Jamaica or Costa Rica or whatever people want to do for their long vacations, if they have that ability, that's fine, whatever. But that's different than living here September to June and then renting out at market rate July and August. That I do not think should be a term. I think that should be very clearly defined, because that to me is totally the antithesis of what we're trying to do here. So I wanted to just bring that point up. I'm sure you were going to discuss it, Judy, but those were my 3 thoughts. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I think that was a foregone.
Okay, great. So steps from here, Judy will circle back with kind of a future meeting with written outline concept.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I think Vicky and team are working on legislation aspects to bring forward at a future meeting, in hopes of having something to deliver to the select board for the Springtown meeting.
Yep, that is my understanding. So when are you guys meeting again?
Our next meeting,
Tuesday?
yeah, next Tuesday. And on the part that needs to go on the warrant, it is going to be very important that we talk about that part anyway next week, because Libby would like to start socializing the language, specific warrant language, with the select board at their meeting the following week.
Yep.
Go ahead, Vicky.
And, when we met, we also talked about enforcement of these. And we know that that's a big concern of a lot of people. And just, by way of informing you all, that, we talked about it, what we can do. And, we do have some measures with some teeth, a little bit more teeth in them, to put either liens against people's property, fines. I mean, this is, have some kind of management over the program that is going to watch this, so that people can't take advantage of the whole situation. Like like Meg is pointing out, someone goes and decides to short-term rental, we want to be able to keep an idea of that, or they're renting it out even longer and, not around. So I just want to point that out, that we're going to focus a bit on that as well.
Right.
The only thing that we didn't discuss that I am curious of and want to contemplate over a period of time is the pilot program only available to owner occupants? Or if the owner occupant moves on from the property, can a tenant qualify in that property while the owner continues to own it?
So I'm
Sorry.
gonna give you an answer you don't want to hear, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This is a pilot program. And we're trying to keep it simple. And I think you have to think about starting to add levels of complexity here. That for this consultant starts to feel a little bit like something else I just went through with Nantucket, where layers of complexity were added on and all of a sudden something became unintelligible to the rest of the world. So just anything you can do to keep this pilot simple is what I would recommend. No what ifs or maybe this or.
Understood. Meg first, then Penny.
I'd like to suggest we look at what Indeed Vale's program says about tenants, because I think that that's a huge potential market, and really important for us to remember that people who own a house who don't have the vested interest of living here year round, but are willing to rent it year round, are probably very enticed to sell in this market. And if we can keep those houses on Nantucket year round, that'd be great. So I would wonder how simplified it is for Vale Indeed.
Penny?
Yeah, ironically,
Meg.
I was gonna, Meg's comment was a perfect segue to mine, which is George Ruther over and over again told us, keep it simple. And he's tread the path ahead of us, so I support that.
Yeah.
Great. Rima?
But in the Vale Indeed, aren't they owners allowed to rent year round? So is that would owners be allowed to rent year round under our program?
I think that's that's the conversation. That's the crux.
Right. Well, I think it's a good, with a lease and proof of residency for the tenant, I think that would be not too complicated and worth having.
Okay. So so I think let's get the framework, kind of look at it in front of us, have some time to mull it over before like an open live conversation, and then come back to this. Because I don't think we're going to solve all the details right here, but it feels like we're moving forward.
So, Mr. Chair, just for planning purposes, so we know we need to talk about a warrant article at the next meeting. Judy, how are you feeling about a further conversation on this?
On the program design?
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like we will be in a place to have something to receive beforehand, consider, think about, and discuss at that meeting on the 12th, or would it be following that?
No, I'm thinking the meeting on the 12th.
Okay.
I was
Good.
hoping to have more done for today.
Yep.
I just couldn't pull it off. But no, when we spoke on Friday, I think we all agreed the 12th was really the target. And I said, oh, I can do more of this by the 5th. Well, here we are. And I apologize. It's not that I don't care about you.
Welcome to year end and holiday time.
Right.
Oh, and MBTA communities. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, Meg.
Are there other specifications of the program that we need to discuss today, or are we saving those for next week? For example, what percentage range we would be considering, or just any of the other terms that like Vail has set, for example? Are we working off their program at all as a starting point?
I mean, we're looking at it, but I think we're trying to make sure that whatever we do here is really relevant to Nantucket. Vail is different in some ways, and I think we need to understand that. I
Yeah.
also is starting a program here, whereas Vail is now administering one that's been in place for a while. So I don't think you want to try to just say, we're doing Vail indeed not ×2 in Nantucket, because I don't think you're there.
Yeah, totally respect that. And I hear what you're saying. I guess my question is just in terms of if we have a list of 15 bullet points that are terms we need to identify that we can have a conversation about either today or next week, what are the other things that we still need to identify, like what the percentage, if that's the route we're going, in terms of the buyout would be, or how we evaluate the property, just like all of the little, I'm not saying we can just pick up Vail and drop it in place and call it Nantucket indeed, but I'm thinking that if we use Vail's framework as a starting point to maybe make sure we're identifying the criteria, that might be helpful, but maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that I don't know about. I'm just asking that question and those two metrics in particular.
Yeah, I think the Vail and Deed program got us to where we are today, and the hope is to get the bullet sheet to then understand what all of those metrics are and then work through them to customize for our marketplace. And that's the direction of the steps from my view. I don't think we've nailed any of that stuff down at this point. Go to Tom, Vicky, and Tucker.
Yeah, just very generally, it was pointed out by George and also Vicky and Judy that Colorado's housing laws are different than Massachusetts. So that's something we need to,
Come to Vicky.
So Tom just exactly made my point exactly. So yeah, we have to really consider what the laws of Massachusetts are versus Colorado. The other thing is that I lost my train of thought.
What age does to you, Vicky? Sorry.
What?
Said that's what age does to you. But I'm a lot older than you, but I get to.
Well, my birthday is on Friday, and it's rapidly hitting me another year. Oh gosh, I forgot. Go to Tucker, and then
I was gonna say we'll give you a minute. We'll go to Tucker. And I'll pop back in. Tucker.
Okay.
Well, I was going to make the same point as Tom and Vicky, but but also our twins' birthdays on Friday, Vicky. So I'll be thinking of you. Yes, the Vail and Deed program, I think, can offer some framework. The other thing, in addition to the difference in, how that program is designed in Colorado law and whether or not we'd be discriminating against retirees, for example, here, if we were to implement the same thing, is the reality that the market in Vail is quite different than the market in Nantucket. They have a large inventory of condominium product. So it's kind of a commodity there. And that's what's enabled them to make the kind of headway they have, where you have $500,000 condominium units and buying down the restriction. We do not have that same marketplace here.
That's correct. Thank you.
Right.
I wondered how much discussion there may have been about that, because it is a very different product in place in Vail.
Mm-hmm.
Vicky.
So I remembered what I wanted to tell you. So the Warren article that we're drafting isn't going to have all of these things worked out in it. It's really going to be giving us the authority to be able to do the program. And we have general parameters like maybe the income level or any kind of restrictions or things like that. But I don't envision it as having a lot of these terms ironed out. I think that comes more with the program guidelines. Correct, Judy, if I'm wrong?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, being settled on what that warrant article should be is one piece of this. Wrestling with now, how are we explaining come April or whenever town meeting is, this is what we're planning to do with this. Having now the authority, this is how we're planning to launch this. Having this authority, which is the authority's broader, but this is where we're starting with this and here's why. And I think we have to be able to say that to the public so people have some idea that you guys know where you're going. But yeah, the authority is broader. Because the program could evolve and you would want to be able to allow it to do that, potentially.
Go ahead, Tucker.
So, I mean, I think at this next meeting, we want to break these things into two items, agenda items. One is simply the year-round legislation.
Yeah.
The second thing is this program.
Yeah.
And this program could be in place in advance of town meeting based on funding we already have available to us.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we're all thinking in a similar way about this, and that I'm understanding how you're thinking about it, Judy, and so forth.
Can you repeat that, Tucker? I'm not sure I understood what you meant.
Well, I think there are two parts here. I mean, similar, for example, to Provincetown, we
Right.
are going to be seeking legislation at the state level that would recognize simply a year-round deed restriction.
Absolutely.
So, and that, you know, with the idea that perhaps potentially funding could go, appropriate funding could go toward simply, let's say, buying down a year-round deed restriction, year-round only, much like the Bail and Deed program is
Right.
year-round, more workforce oriented, but year-round only, no income restriction associated with it. That's the legislative effort. Then where I feel like we're focusing our efforts, and that I'm going to say is sort of the Vicky realm, with input from all of us, including you, Judy. Where we're focusing our efforts with you, Judy, is now on program development
Right.
based on this 240% AMI, which we can operate under today. And and that we could have something in place in advance of town meeting and any state action on what Vicky's working on.
I completely agree with you. That is exactly what we're doing. All I
Yeah.
was trying to say is that when now you're on town meeting floor, explaining we're looking for this statutory authority. Here's what we're doing that we'd like to be able to build on with that authority in place. That's all I'm trying to say. I think public's going to want to understand what the hell this is. And I
Right.
think having this program in place enables you to answer those questions. And then to be able to say, we want to be able to evolve this to meet the island's needs. And this legislation enables us to do that. Whereas right now, what we're doing is squarely within the authority that we currently have.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we have a plan for next week.
Yeah.
So we'll put those on as two separate agenda items. So we can close today's year-round deed restriction program item. We covered other business. We covered board comments. That leads us to item 9, which is executive session.
So I think that means you want me to leave.
You're out of here. See you later.
Bye. Thank you all. Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Judy. Meg, did your hand just go up?
Yeah, I'm sorry I forgot to mention this earlier, but Tucker, I spoke with the board at NET and proposed to them sort of an opportunity for us to have a conversation about that property at Cow Pond and allowing that some potential work between the two groups so that NET can focus more primarily on excellence in education. And they were like, awesome, can we meet with Tucker ASAP?
And thank you, Meg. I don't know if it happened before or after that, but Hadley Dutra did reach out and we did get together and have.
Awesome. Was that like in the past week?
It was, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. So we'll kind of fit that into board comments. Penny?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm not going to be here on December 19th.
Penny? Well, we'll look to get you a written thing so you can deliver your notes that we'll read into the meeting for you.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Okay. Rima?
Yeah, I don't have a link to executive session, so I'm wondering if Ellis could send one out, please.
I'm assuming there's a yes. Okay, so with that, I'm looking for a motion to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or real value of property where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of a public body,
So moved.
and not to return to the public session.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Shanta. Vote by roll call. Tom Dixon.
Aye.
Shanta Murphy.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Meg Browers.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan's an aye. See you there.